Speaker of the House James Wright's resignation speech. Mr. Speaker, for 34 years I have had the great privilege to be a member of this institution, the People's House, and I shall forever be grateful for that wondrous privilege. I never cease to be thankful to the people of the 12th District of Texas for their friendship and their understanding and their partiality towards me. 18 times they have voted to permit me the grand privilege of representing them here in this repository of the democratic principles. Only a few days ago, even in the face of harsh news accounts and bitter criticisms, they indicated in a poll taken by the leading newspaper in the district that 78% of them approved of my services, and that includes 73% of the Republicans in my district, and I'm very proud of that. And you, my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, I owe a great deal to you. You have given me the greatest gift within your power to give. To be the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives is the grandest opportunity that can come to any lawmaker anywhere in the Western world. And I would be deeply remiss if I did not express my sincere appreciation to you for that opportunity. I hope that I have reflected credit upon the people of my district, who know me best, perhaps, and upon the people of this House who, next to them, would know me best. I love this institution. I want to assure each of you that under no circumstances, having spent more than half my life here, this house being my home, would I ever knowingly or intentionally do or say anything to violate its rules or detract from its standards. All of us are prone to human error. Speaker of the House is in fact the chief enforcer of the rules of the House, and it's really a wonderful thing that any member of the House may at his will bring questions against any other member. And under our rules, that has to be looked into. And I have no quarrel with that, nor any criticism of people who serve on the Committee on Standards. It's a thankless job, and we have to have such a committee. For over a year, well, just about a year, I have ached to tell my side of the story. That to which I have to respond keeps changing. But today silence is no longer tolerable. For the good of the House is it even desirable. So without any rancor and without any bitterness, without any hard feelings towards anybody, I thank you for indulging me because I am answer to you, to the American people, for my honor, my reputation, and all the things that I've tried to stand for all these years. Having gone through this agonizing experience for about a year now, I mean, almost every day, there's a new story and a newspaper leak without any chance for me to know what's coming next. No chance for me to go to the committee and answer it and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not correct. Maybe the committee, which is currently required to sit as a kind of grand jury and a petite jury both, ought to have a different composition rather than those who have the statement of alleged violations being the same people who have to judge them. I think it clearly is difficult to expect members who have publicly announced reason to believe there's a violation to reverse their position at a hearing stage and dismiss charges against a member. Maybe, once a report of alleged violations is issued, the committee rules ought to allow the member to respond expeditiously, and that to deny a member their opportunity to deny quickly can cause serious political injury. It's unfair. Once alleged violations are announced, the committee ought to just immediately release to the member all the evidence that it could have to indicate that that's happened. In my case, for example, the committee has yet to release any witness testimony or documents that it obtained during the investigation. Why hide the evidence? What's there to hide? This ought not be the kind of proceeding in which strategic maneuvering be allowed to override the fundamental relations of fair play. It is intolerably hurtful to our government that qualified members of the executive and legislative branches are resigning because of the ambiguities and the confusion surrounding the ethics laws and because of their own consequent vulnerability to personal attack. That's a shame. It's happening. And it is grievously hurtful to our society when vilification becomes an accepted form of political debate, when negative campaigning becomes a full-time occupation, when members of each party become self-appointed vigilantes, carrying out personal vendettas against members of the other party. In God's name, that's not what this institution is supposed to be all about. When vengeance becomes more desirable than vindication, harsh personal attacks on one another's motives, one another's character, drown out the quiet logic of serious debate on important issues, things that we ought to be involved ourselves in. Surely, that's unworthy of our institution, unworthy of our American political process. All of us in both political parties must resolve to bring this period of mindless cannibalism to an end. There's been enough of it. I pray to God that we will do that and restore the spirit that's always existed in this house. When I first came here all those years ago, in 1955, this was a place where a man's word was his bond, and his honor and the truth of what he said to you were assured. You didn't have to prove it. I remember one time Cleve Bailey of West Virginia, in a moment of impassioned concern over a tariff bill, jumped up and made an objection to the fact that Chet Holfield had voted. In those days, we shouted our answers to the votes, and Holfield back there in the back, and Bailey said, "I object to the gentleman from California's vote being counted. He came down and voted late," he said. "He was not in the chamber when his name was called, and therefore is not entitled to vote. It was a close vote." Speaker Rayburn grew red as a tomato, and I thought he was going to break the gavel when he hammered. He said, "The chair always takes the word of a member." And then, because I was sitting over here behind Cleve Bailey, I heard other members come and say, "Cleve, you're wrong. Chet was back there behind the rail. I was standing by him when he answered, and his answer just wasn't heard." And others said, "You shouldn't have said that." And Cleve Bailey, crusty old West Virginian, came down here and abjectly, literally with tears in his eyes, apologized for having questioned the word of a member. And we need that. If I made mistakes, oh boy, how many. I made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes in judgment, oh yes, a lot of them. I'll make some more. Recently, let me just comment on this briefly because it's such a sensational thing, and injury's been done to me in this particular moment because of it. John Mack, many of you remember him, know him. I think a lot of you like him, respect him. I helped John one time in his life when he was about 19 years old, 20. I didn't know him, never had met him. I didn't know the nature of the crime he had been convicted of. I knew only that John Mack was a young man whom my daughter had known in high school. My daughter was married to his brother, incidentally. That's how she knew about John. And she mentioned it to me. All I knew was that he had been convicted of assault and that he'd served 27 months in a Fairfax County jail. Contrary to what's been published, I did not interfere with the court. I didn't suggest anything to the court. I didn't have anything to do with his sentencing. I really didn't. Didn't know and didn't inquire. Maybe that's bad judgment. I didn't inquire as to the exact nature of the crime. The sheriff's office in Fairfax County called and asked me if I would know of any job I could help this young man get. They wanted to parole him. They said he'd been a model rehabilitated prisoner. And I gave him a job as a file clerk, $9,000 a year. After that, he really blossomed and grew and developed, and those of you who know him can conceive, as I never could conceive when finally, just 2 years ago, I read in the newspaper the precise nature of that crime. It just didn't fit his character. He married and had 2 beautiful children, wonderfully responsible, and I think became a very fine person. Now, was that bad judgment? Yes, maybe so. It doesn't have anything to do with the rules, but it's got all mixed up with it. And I don't think, though, that it's a bad judgment to try and give a young man a second chance. Maybe I should have known more about it, but in this case, I think he has turned out well, and I don't believe that America really stands for the idea that a person should ever, forever be condemned, and I think maybe he ought to have a second chance. And that's what I thought in the case of John Mack. And, good judgment or bad, that's it. And I believe in giving somebody a second chance. Have I contributed unwittingly to this manic idea of a frenzy of feeding on other people's reputation? Have I caused a lot of this stuff? Maybe I have. God, I hope I haven't, but maybe I have. Have I been too partisan? Too insistent? Too abrasive? Too determined to have my way? Perhaps. Maybe so. If I've offended anybody in the other party, I'm sorry. I never meant to. Would not have done so intentionally. I've always tried to treat all of our colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, with respect. Are there things I'd do differently if I had to do them over again? Oh boy, how many may I name for you? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to make you a proposition. Let me give you back this job you gave to me as a proposition for all of this season of bad will that has grown up among us. Give it back to you. I will resign as Speaker of the House effective upon this election of my successor, and I'll ask that we call a caucus on the Democratic side for next Tuesday to choose a successor. I don't want to be a party to tearing up the institution. I love it. Tell you the truth, this year it has been very difficult for me to offer the kind of moral leadership that the organization needs, because every time I've tried to talk about the needs of the country, about the needs for affordable homes, Jack Kemp's idea, and the idea developing here, every time I've tried to talk about the need for a minimum wage, tried to talk about the need for daycare centers, embracing ideas on both sides of the aisle, the media have not been interested in that. They wanted to ask about petty personal finances. You need somebody else, someone to give you that back. We'll have the caucus on Tuesday, and then I will offer to resign from the House sometime before the end of June. Let that be a total payment for the anger and hostility we feel toward each other. Let's not try to get even with each other. Republicans, please don't get it in your heads you need to get somebody else because of John Tower. Democrats, please don't feel that you need to get somebody on the other side because of me. We ought to be more mature than that. Let's restore to this institution the rightful priorities of what's good for this country, and let's all work together to try to achieve them. The nation has important business, and it can't afford these distractions, and that's why I offer to resign. I've enjoyed these years in Congress. I'm grateful for all of you who have taught me things and have been patient with me. Horace Greeley had a quote that Harry Truman used to like, and fame is a vapor, popularity an accident. Riches take wings. Those who cheer today may curse tomorrow. Only one thing endures: character. I'm not a bitter man. I'm not going to be. I'm a lucky man. God has given me the privilege of serving in this, the greatest institution on earth, for a great many years. And I'm grateful to the people of my district in Texas. I'm grateful to you, my colleagues, all of you. God bless this institution. God bless the United States.